Huge day today in the world of tax and finance. It looks like President Trump is going to win the election. The Senate is going to go to the Republicans, and it looks like it may be possible that the House will also go to the Republicans, creating a full sweep, which means in the tax world, there could be major tax legislation changes going to 2025 based on what President Trump has already proposed. Things like tax-free Social Security, tax-free tips, tax-free overtime, removal of the SALT cap that's been around for the last few years. So we're going to spend some time in this video going through all the changes that Trump has proposed that we may see in 2025. Hello everyone, I am Michael Ruger. I am the managing partner of Greenbush Financial Group, and given the election results that just came in, today we're going to be going through all the items that make up the Trump tax reform that we could see as early as 2025. While we are still waiting on the results of the House of Representatives, it looks like Trump will have the presidency, the Senate will be controlled by the Republicans, and if the Republicans also get the House, that means they're going to be able to aggressively push a lot of the Trump tax reform proposals through. But even if the House is controlled by the Democrats by a slim margin, some of these pieces that we're going to cover today could still make it through in 2025 if they can sway some of the Democrats across the aisle. Some of the tax law changes that Trump has proposed are as follows. The first is making Social Security completely exempt from taxation. Second, exempting tips from income taxation. Third, exempting overtime pay from taxation. Fourth, a new itemized tax deduction for auto loan interest. 5, dropping the corporate tax rate from the current 21% down to 15%. 6, eliminating the $10,000 SALT cap that's been in existence for the last few years. And finally, the extension of the Tax Cut and Jobs Act beyond 2025. Trump's first major tax proposal is to make Social Security completely tax-free at the federal level, which is enormous because most retirees, depending on their income bracket, pay about 85% of their Social Security benefit is taxable at the federal level. If this actually goes through, retirees that are used to paying tax on a majority of their Social Security at the federal level would no longer have to pay tax on any of it. So if you had someone who, let's say, received $40,000 in Social Security, that means $34,000 of that Social Security benefit was probably taxed at the federal level. If they were in the 22% tax bracket, they were paying about $7,400 per year in taxes. They would then keep that in their pocket. Trump is also proposing exempting tips from taxation. So if you work as a waitress, a bartender, hairstylist, any industry where there's tips involved, normally you're supposed to report those tips and pay income tax on them at both the federal and state level. What Trump is proposing is anything that's related to tips would not be taxed at all. The next proposal is around overtime pay. So Trump has proposed that for any hourly workers that work over 40 hours a week and receive overtime pay, that overtime pay would actually be exempt from income taxation at the federal level. And the Tax Foundation estimates that about 34 million Americans receive some form of overtime pay throughout the year. Trump also proposed a deduction for auto loan interest. So if you have auto loans and you're paying interest, kind of like when you're paying a mortgage and you had interest, if you itemize, you get to take a deduction for that interest. But in past years, the itemized deductions haven't meant that much because the standard deduction has been so high that only about 10% of Americans actually itemize to capture a deduction like this. But this could all start to change when we get later on and talk about them repealing the SALT cap. So let's talk about the SALT cap. So for anyone who resides in a state that has both income tax and property tax, when Trump first took office during his first term, they passed the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, which capped property taxes and state income tax deductions at $10,000, which means if you, let's say you had $10,000 in property taxes and you paid $20,000 in state income tax for a total of 30 grand, you were capped at taking a $10,000 deduction, which no longer made sense for most individuals to itemize. And then they jacked up the standard deductions. So that's why 90% of Americans now don't itemize, don't really take advantage of the property tax and state income tax deductions, and they just take the larger standard deduction. But in his proposed regulation, he would be removing the SALT cap. So that means individuals that have those higher property taxes, higher income taxes could take full advantage of that deduction and potentially itemize again. Trump has also proposed reducing the corporate tax rate on any company that manufactures in the U.S. from the current 21% corporate tax rate to a lower 15% corporate tax rate. And when we talk about a 6% difference in taxes on these major corporations, it's a lot of money to their bottom line. The final item is the extension of the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, which Trump and Congress passed into law during his first term. All those tax rules were set to expire at the end of 2025, and we're supposed to sunset back to what the rules were starting in 2026. If the Republicans have the full sweep, the presidency, the House, the Senate, most likely all the features associated with that Tax Cut and Jobs Act will be extended beyond 2026, which includes, the larger estate tax exemptions, gifts exemptions, larger standard deductions, a bunch of child tax credits, other things across the board. These are all big material changes in the mix for tax law going into 2025, but a ton is going to hinge on the next 48 hours and what the outcome is of the House of Representatives. If that truly does go Republican, we could see a lot of these changes take place in 2025. Again, if it doesn't go to the Republicans, if the House goes to the Democrats, we could still see some of these tax changes creep in, but you might not see most of them. I hope this information was helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me at greenbushfinancial.com. Thank you.